We are live.
Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. A soccer podcast that probably won't last. Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. Schuyler and Jeff don't know how to rhyme. Meet the Suckers and chat shit today.
How's that sounding this week, Schuyler?
A little better.
A little better.
Welcome to another episode of Meet the Suckers. I'm your host, Schuyler Hunt.
Wow, you're feeling so good that you became like a douche in a 1950s movie about making it in the radio industry.
That's who I am, Jeff. That's not who I'm acting like. No, I actually slept for 10 hours last night.
Oh man, for the first time in months, I imagine.
Years, actually. But it was because I didn't sleep at all the night before because my apartment currently has fleas.
Oh God. I feel like did you just you slid the misery bar from United onto like fleas and you know what I mean? And like the build a character version of your life?
It feels like a cost was paid. This is the easiest segue. A blood sacrifice was made. Unfortunately, it's payable in 0.001% increments to fleas. But as a result of my infestation, it feels like the universe allowed some interesting results to happen this weekend, let's say. But the first topic and the most important topic, Jeff, I'd love for you to read it to our...
Well, to me, the topic is Glazers out. For those of you who are not streaming, Glazers out. It's in all caps.
Glazers,
just throw it out. To me, this says almost everything you need to This answers a lot of questions that I was going to eventually ask you today, which is
let's shorten this podcast.
Yeah, of are you real happy about the United Liverpool thing that just happened, or do you just still hate the management / ownership of your company that bad?
Do you remember the movie The Wizard of Oz, Jeff, from the 1930s?
I do, and I just saw Wicked. Go on.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain is the Glazers' approach to managing this team. It's they were looking at, remember, Marco Arnautovic and Adrian Rabiot an episode ago.
Right.
And we lost both of our opening matches this season, and we're about to get trounced by Liverpool. So what you saw was the most dramatic outpouring of anti-Glazer sentiment since the Super League situation happened last year.
Last week.
But that was also galvanized by the fact that all football fans were coming out against the league. So it was a global news story, whereas Manchester United sucking and underinvesting, less of a news story, right?
Yeah.
But
although enough to get Elon involved. He tweeted about it. This feels like a month ago.
So that fan outpouring resulted in first a sketchy ass guy named, I want to say Michael Knighton. Yes, Michael Knighton. Who
is this guy that just tried to buy Chelsea recently?
No. We'll get to Jim Radcliffe. Michael Knighton was this guy who I think tried to buy or be a part of buying United in the 80s. Didn't work. So instead he bought Carlisle United. Are you familiar with Carlisle United?
Not that much, which sells me a lot.
So they were doing all right with the manager they had. He bought Carlisle United, fired the manager, and if my understanding is correctly, took over as manager, and promptly got them relegated.
He took over as that's amazing. That's ultimately what every bad owner is doing, is taking over way too much responsibility because they own the place.
Well, it's wealthy people thinking, I'm wealthy, I know better than everyone else, look at all the wealth I have. That means that they know everything.
I bought a stock once before that stock became more valuable than it is today. That's my IQ, right?
Michael Knighton's IQ. I can't get into it apparently, as that would be libelous. I've been hearing on various podcasts to even intimate that he doesn't know what he's talking about is libelous. But I don't think they can sue us because we're in America, right? We could just go LOL. We're not getting sued. We're not going
I'm pretty
to be
sure you're
sued.
allowed to have opinions about someone's intellect.
But honestly, hearing how all of the other like British podcasters that I listen to have talked about him, it sounds like he's sending out like at least legal letters to anyone who says a word about him. But recent events are
That'll be fun. That'll be such a milestone in this podcast. The first time we get a cease and desist from someone.
Dude, we could get one from just like using a little bit of Premier League audio footage. It's a likelihood.
Do that.
But so fans are freaking out about United sucking. United fans are freaking out about United sucking. All other fans are rejoicing. Michael Knighton releases this video on YouTube where basically it's filmed by some like documentarian, so he's got a good camera. And Michael Knighton is basically being like, I've got this secret consortium that's going to buy Manchester United. Just you watch. By the end of this season, Glazers will be gone. And he says all that. It gets a lot of airplay. Like everyone's talking about this video, and they're all like, "He's full of shit," right? And everyone's like, "I don't know, maybe." But we're so desperate. We're like, we'll believe anything if it means getting rid of these fucking leeches. And then what happens is Jim Radcliffe, who is the richest Brit, I believe, and he was born in Manchester, and he attempted to buy Chelsea with a late bid. By the way, it's Sir Jim Radcliffe, I should say. He's a knight, unlike Michael Knighton. Yeah, exactly. He's such an obe. But so Jim Radcliffe's official spokespeople for his company Ineos comes out and he's like, we are very interested in buying Manchester United if the Glazers will sell, which was like front page news everywhere because finally legitimate buying option is interested. He already owns Nice. And they've been having a Nice couple of years. They're
trying to buy Pepe right now though, so I don't know if
but he'd be great in League One,
he'll
right?
Be good. He was before, yeah.
So that happens, which gets
he also
Elon
owns
Musk.
Like an F1 group. He owns a bunch of stuff. He owns like.
But the F1 team that they own is like wins a lot. Like they find out how do they optimize the operations of a given thing that they buy. That's what he brings, which is the opposite of what the Glazers do, which is give jobs to their buddies or people that they know.
The Glazers own the Jacksonville Jaguars,
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, okay.
Tom Brady, Super Bowl.
Okay, well, yeah. That team isn't so bad. But that's it? It's just that and United? Or do they have other stuff too?
I think they probably own like, I don't know, timeshares or sex trafficking or something. I'm sorry.
Probably.
Possibly libelous. I think they could own those things.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't know that they own those things. It just seems likely. But in that mix was Elon Musk saying, I'm gonna buy Manchester United, but he's pulling the same shit that he did with Twitter. Like, I'm starting to suspect Elon Musk will buy stock for something, then tweet something inflammatory, watch the stock price change, and pump and dump. He did it with Dogecoin.
Yeah.
He tried to do it with Twitter, but now Twitter is like, oh no, you've said you want to marry us. Marriage is for life with Twitter. So that was a lot of craziness. And as soon as that craziness starts happening and the Glazers start feeling threatened, what happens? Hold on, I'm rearranging. So as soon as the Glazers feel threatened, we go from investigating 15 million pound shit as fuck French McTominay, Adrian Rabiot, and instead we buy Real Madrid's star defensive midfielder who is 30 but is still arguably in his prime.
Yeah.
And we just went from no defensive midfielder to top 5 in world football defensive midfielder.
Yeah.
So while I would normally be like, oh, thank you for the good player, I'm not buying it because why didn't they do this 2 months ago? Why didn't they get Eric Ten Hag all the players that he asked for 2 months ago? But then they'll now pay 50% more than they were priced at in June to get us off their backs. So that's why we're leading off with the topic Glazers out. Now, Jeff, I would love to. Oh, I was gonna like boomerang this to you for like
boomerang it.
Talk to me about Cronkies.
Oh,
Talk to me about Arsenal fan opinion of Glazers or outsider opinion of Glazers. Like, give me that. Like, let's talk ownership for our teams.
I think that the general opinion of the Cronkies for a long time, when they own 2/3 of the club and were not putting a penny in, and they were sort of just letting Arsene Wenger run it as like a sort of not-for-profit.
Just keep us at zero, right?
Yeah. Like I think the general opinion then was pretty low, but the one thing that I will say about them, and I was kind of alluding to this when I was asking earlier, of like what other stuff do they own, is the Cronkies are a mega sports buying, because the Cronkies own the Colorado Avalanche, the St. Louis Rams, the Denver Nuggets. They own like a couple lacrosse teams. They own what's the Colorado MLS team?
The Rapids? I think they might not be the Rapids anymore. They might be like Real, Colorado, Lake City, AFC.
That sounds like something they do. But they own a bunch of teams, and I think, on some level, at first it sort of made me think, oh, these are like, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans felt the same way, like, oh, these are like impersonal weirdos who like they don't care about this club. We are one of many corporate line items to them. But at least for me, I don't know if this is for everybody. Maybe I'm speaking like this because we've had, a couple good months in a row at Arsenal, but like it kind of strikes me as like if you own that many teams, you will quickly get disabused of the notion that you know exactly what's best on the field, or even like in terms of the contracts and stuff. It's like you start learning how to manage at a meta level where you're managing the managers who are then, these are the people like the do at Arsenal that are going and signing players. These are people like Arteta who are actually managing players. So I get the feeling, and you look at all those teams for the most part, like, the St. Louis Rams, very successful team recently. They did screw over their fans in St. Louis by becoming the LA Rams. But I kind of get the feeling that as an ownership group, they know what they're doing, and they seem to be staying out of the day-to-day operations enough. And I feel like that's the biggest key of like, just hire people that you actually trust to do this job and that are qualified to do the job, and then go from there. Like,
so is the lesson in all this, if you're moving to France, learn French or hire a French translator, like,
right? Or do both. Like, get as good at French as you can, but realize you're never going to write a French novel.
You're never going to be Thierry Henry. You're never going to be Arsene Wenger. And I think the Glazers have had 17 fucking years to learn that lesson. 17 years. How many protests? How many? Like, it's been a decade since we've won the Premier League. It's been a number of years since we won, was it the Europa League or the FA Cup? But, like, for us to finish in the position 6th and then have them spend the least of anyone in the league, like, it's mind-boggling how they expect this to turn around. And if they don't expect it to turn around, it looks like they're looking at us as a little boat that's leaking, and they're like, let's just use this boat and let it take us as far as it can take us before we abandon ship. So like they were going to milk it of minimal investment, maximum withdrawal for as many years as they could until that dried up, and then they were going to chuck it onto the scrap heap for what someone would pay for it.
Yeah. I mean, and the crazy thing about that, it's like someone buying a house 10 years ago, where even if that house wasn't that great, the housing market has just gone so crazy that they may have made money on it. Or even like, if they didn't think through the housing decision the way that they should have. I think it's similar in terms of like the market for these teams. They've never been worth more. They're probably going to be worth more next year in the year after. It's hard to see an end to the fortune coming in, like the TV revenues from foreign sales and things like that. Everything just goes crazy. But
somehow we have no money. But somehow we have money for.
You have imaginary money. All of these clubs, including Manchester United, they're worth more than they were a few years ago. And so, on some level, their investment has come due. But this is not the kind of money that you can get out of an ATM, and that's the kind of money that you need to buy players with.
But so if we jump back to the second banner, which said Casemiro, when we're talking about Casemiro, am I excited we have Casemiro in how it will impact me watching games this season? Yes. Do I think them spending 70 million is responsible if they're gonna go do something else shitty to find the 70 million later? No. Like if they're like there was rumors that they were gonna talk to some private equity group and essentially do the same thing Barcelona just did. That's not okay. That is not okay to me. Especially because I want them out. I don't want the debt higher. That makes it harder to get bought.
Right.
So if I would rather we spend 0 this season and finish 14th if it gets them out. Because long term, we will never be competing with the Cities and the Liverpools and maybe the Arsenals and the Chelseas and the Spurs if they are running the club and we are paying, I don't know how many millions of pounds in interest, millions of pounds in debt, millions of pounds in dividends every year. And if that's priority over making the team good, which it is, and if they continue to insist on hiring yes men and friends and peons, like the team, like this could be the last the beating of, or sorry, well, we're going to get to in a second, but yesterday's success might be like the last happy podcast that I can do with you
forever.
To be,
and maybe the first happy podcast too. There haven't been that many ones.
I'm also not pumped. That happy.
yeah. The first like sort of mediocre. The only thing that I will say, and I think, everything that you've said about the Glazers, I think is spot on, with the one possible exception that like, just because they're spending money doesn't mean the club will get better. There was an interesting graphic that kind of went viral in soccer circles recently that showed, like who are the top 10 spending clubs of the last few years. And a lot of those names, you're like, yeah, that makes sense. PSG does spend a lot of money. That makes sense. Man City does spend a lot of money. But then you see teams on there like Everton. And it's like, you know what I mean? It's not for lack of trying. And I think that this Casemiro deal still a little bit reeks of that to me, where it's like,
oh, absolutely.
It's like you said, they're spending partially just as a PR stunt because they have the fans on their back and they're like, who can we buy that then they'll have to be like, well, they bought one of the best players of Real Madrid,
Yes, they think that that's enough because in the past, bread and circuses was enough to distract angry fans because the fans just wanted to see the team getting better. But now we know them too well. Right. We know what they're about.
Because, I mean, if you go back a few years, it's not like you guys haven't ever spent. You bought Ronaldo's, you bought Pogba's. You're actually on this thing that I just pulled up. You are the number one spending team over the last, 10 years. But, it's the kind of spending that they do. It's not
idiot
smart.
Spending.
It's not smart. And I think, there are a lot of clubs out there. Dortmund isn't on this list. You know what I mean? There are other good teams. Spurs aren't on this list.
They have good scouting, and they buy players at the right time, not 2000 late.
Right. So I still think that even it is a matter they do obviously they can't just keep slurping money out of the side door of the club, which is what the main thing that they've done. And one of the biggest differences between them and the Kroenkes, if I don't sort of diverge
too much, don't do that. Well, we're the only club that does it. We're the only club that pays a dividend.
It's a pretty scummy thing to do.
We're the only club, I think, in professional fucking football that does it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a wild choice that they've made there. We're speaking in circles, but to anyone who might actually be listening to this, they give themselves very generous consulting fees year on year. It's like 11 million a year, 20 million. And, I would really love to know, I would like to see some of those big consulting decks that they've put together for that 20 million. Because I'm not sure.
But add that to the debt and interest, which is their fucking fault. We did not earn that debt. It's not from players being bought by us. It's by them buying Manchester United for free on a loan and then saying, hey, guess what? That's your problem now. So we could have an extra 100 million pounds worth of players a year if there was no dividend, no interest, no debt. And then on top of that, so that let's put that at 2, we could have a 200 million pound transfer window every summer. Right. If you hired fucking smart people to spend that money and to have scouting networks that are ready to go when a player's ready to pop, we buy them and we we lay the groundwork for transfer 6 months, 12 months in advance.
Sure.
Like you do that 200 million is suddenly feeling like 400 million for the money we spend now. You know, like it's just going way further. We could have
100%.
gotten Antony from Ajax, who, by the way, had 8 goals and 6 assists last year in the Dutch league. So not lighting the world on fire, but a good young player. We could have had him in May when Ten Hag was appointed for 45 million. Now we're talking about 100 million.
Wow.
So biggest spenders, yes. Smartest spenders, not in the top 100. But Jeff, I'm sorry. That was a rant before we even got to the ranting stuff. Yesterday, United versus Liverpool. Did you get to watch any of it?
I watched quite a bit of it, not all of it.
Did you see any of the goals?
Oh yeah, I saw all the goals. And I saw a few other key moments in the match.
Then let me tell you what I saw. I saw from the team that lost 4-0 to Brentford a little over a week ago. This team on paper outran Liverpool, the team that outruns everybody.
Yeah.
Especially
Did you see the thing about Ten Hag? He had that, that punishment that everybody talked about, the 13.8 or 13. Yeah, we did. Everybody.
13.6.
I mean, if we're talking about it, dude, no, 13.9 or I don't know, whatever. It was a lot of kilometers that they had been outrun by Brentford. And did you see that he ran it with them? Which I kind of
did not see that.
Apparently, I just saw that right before we came on the air. But apparently, he went with him, which I think. That's a really neat touch. That's like if they were filming an All or Nothing about you, you would be stoked for that episode.
Well, I already tweeted the joke was Amazon should do Manchester United, nothing.
Well, and now they've already ruined it by I will say, if we're talking about people who've predicted the future, did I not end the last podcast by being like, what did you win? What if you win?
Jeff, if I had said you're right, Jeff, let me think about that. We would have lost 5-0.
That's absolutely true.
You were tempting fate. You were.
You were very expertly avoiding jinxes, which,
It's not a jinx. It's just I don't want to get my heart broken all the fucking time. I'd rather be yep. Even the diehard podcasts I listen to were 1-0 loss, 2-0 loss. That feels reasonable with a good effort where we see some of Ten Hag's ideas.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Ten Hag's ideas. I saw Rashford pressing. I saw Malacia and Lisandro Martinez, who's our next topic. Incredible. He dropped Harry Maguire. He dropped Ronaldo. These were big calls.
Right.
He started
the Ronaldo one especially. I feel like the Harry Maguire one is it should be a big call considering how much money was spent on him and everything, blah, blah, blah. But it's less of a big call these days because he's been crap for a while. And
he's a big, slow guy who, when a pressing system requires that all of the defense pushes up to midfield so you can really trap in the other team. And then it requires the keeper to come out in case they play some really speculative long ball over the top. The sweeper keeper, your Edersons, your Allisons, your Ramsdales will rush out at the very least to kick it out for a throw-in. So it's not an instant goal. Yes, Liverpool hit the post twice. At one point, Bruno Fernandes, I think, hit the post on our own post.
That was the best almost own goal I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I think he hit a player and the post.
Martinez cleared it. If Martinez wasn't there, if Maguire is there, that's a goal. That's a goal. And then Harry Maguire's head is in his hands and everyone's dropping and we lose that game 4-2.
Yeah.
So in the end, it was 2-0. There was about 10 minutes left. I don't know if I tweeted you or texted this to you or another friend, but I was like, if they score with 10 minutes left, we're fucked. And they scored with 10 minutes left.
Almost on cue. It was the one thing where I was like, oh man, you've been so perfectly avoiding the jinxes and you have just set yourself up there.
I've paid my dues time after time. So then when finally the ref blew the whistle, I mean, there's more we could talk about. We talk about Bruno Fernandes almost getting sent off for 2 simulations.
The one I felt was quite harsh, where I'm like you can't just book guys every time they fall down, and it's not a penalty.
But he did throw himself to the right. Like the yellow card, I was like, yeah, that is what that rule is about.
Yeah.
But the goals, Sancho's goal was so cold-blooded. Like he faked out both the defender, I want to say it was like Milner in front of him, and then, or was that a Milner and Henderson?
He froze
He
Van Dijk.
stood on the ball, yeah, and then placed it immediately to Alisson's right in the left side of the goal. And I stood up and just screamed. I was on a Zoom for work, and I'm talking about like something that's really important one-on-one with a creative director, and I just go, yes, yes. And he's an Arsenal fan, so he's just like on a 20-second tape delay, and then he's like, what? And then he goes, oh wow. Like that was
he was watching
it.
too, man. That saves it.
Yeah, because that's the Monday game, so there was no Arsenal game for you to watch, right? So
that's hilarious. You guys were both just in a conversation, pretending to hear each other while watching the game, like right behind the screen. Like
it was like
this eye contact.
It was like, should I go to HR about this? Like, should I talk to like our CCO about this big deal? And we're like, and it was like, yes.
That's hilarious.
So 1-0 at the half. Then second half, I want to say there's a few moments where Liverpool hit the post, could have tied it, but like De Gea was great. The defense was great. Varane looked like Madrid Varane.
Like the one that you bought.
Yeah. And this is before Casemiro is joining. So this is still with, I think it was a McTominay, Eriksen central midfield with Bruno ahead. And then Fred came on in the second half, which McTominay looked good.
McTominay looked great, didn't he? He had that one crazy pass that I think that was the one that set up the Alanga post.
Yeah,
right?
Alanga hit the post, could have made it. That could have been the first. That could have been the first goal. When that hit the post, I was like, "Fuck."
That had like all the makings. Like if I were you, I would have just assumed that 2 minutes later, Salah was dribbling 3 players and scoring. You know, just had that feeling of like, oh, we could be up 1-0, but we're down 1-0. You know, like that thing.
And we could have been up 2-0 at that point then if that goes in. But I know ifs and buts, right?
Candies and nuts.
Second half, Rashford scores to go 2-0 on just like burning Trent Alexander-Arnold, which he basically did the entire match. Like Rashford looked like he cared. Rashford ran a lot. Rashford was a fucking threat. And I haven't seen that in like over a year, pretty much.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened. What happened in a week to go from Brentford is double penetrating us to I know Liverpool started slow, but you could see in the last third of the game, like they could still score 3 goals in 8 minutes if they really wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, it did feel like, I mean, they're a good enough team, especially attacking wise, that it's like on some level they're never really out of the game. But you close it down. I mean, it does. I wonder when I think about this game if there was any sort of 3D chess involved in the last few weeks of Ten Hag. I wonder if a little bit of this is like, in order for guys to win jobs and for guys to lose jobs, you have to let them lose it. And it's like he basically went out with like the on paper starting 11 the last 2 weeks and got beat 4-0 to Brentford, you know?
He basically
and he was like, look, you guys show me. You show me.
I think that's also like a turning to the Glazers. Do you see how the team looks when you just put random puzzle pieces? Like, I don't know. He wouldn't use that many words. He'd be like, no. Like, no would be his response. To why'd you drop Maguire? No. Like that's he's essentially a magic 8 ball in interviews.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
My only question to you, and you probably have heard more of Ten Hag's thoughts on this, but like, do you think that he told them, please go out and get me a Casemiro? Like,
no.
what is his opinion on that? Because to me, like,
he wanted Frankie, but there's no leverage.
Of course he wanted Frankie. But then once that was gone, do you think that he's psyched to have Casemiro in the team? Or do you think that that was strictly sort of a transfer move coming from the PR department? And he's actually going to be like a little bit unsure how this guy fits in? Because the things that I've read about him tactically are like, dude, like you couldn't ask for a more different midfield setup than a Ten Hag midfield versus the way that Real Madrid have played, where it's like a lower block and, you know, they're not asking him to be super mobile. And is there a
But
chance that Casemiro is just a square peg and this is like this weird transfer?
Because Fred and McTominay are both wrong for the
Yeah.
midfield. So it kind of makes sense for the next 2-3 years. Like, we just need stability. And then you already have Eriksen and Bruno who can just spray passes all day. So if Casemiro can win balls in the middle third of the field and quickly just give the ball to someone else, but apparently he's a good passer.
Yeah.
Like we're getting. He's not going to be attacking exciting, but he's going to be defending exciting. He's like the type of guy who makes like a crazy slide tackle and then like chest bumps himself. Like he's
so you're
like
not
a lunatic.
concerned that he just doesn't fit into this pressing
No,
defense.
because what Ten Hag wants is a bunch of angry warriors. Like that's so let's switch to Lisandro Martinez now. Martinez. And like what I saw from him and Tyrell Malacia in this match was they were both like laying out and there was not a moment of jogging. There was not a moment of head down. If it was Luke Shaw and Harry Maguire, we lose. Like that's the difference. If Ronaldo's up top, we lose. Like if any one of those players starts that match, we lose.
Yeah.
Because they can't, Ronaldo can't press, and the other two can't play with a high intensity pressing defense with 100% focus. If they like Luke Shaw loses his focus 3 or 4 times a match, those are Salah goals. Like that's what happened last time. But so Martinez, just because you wanted to talk about this as someone that we battled over in the summer, once you see him playing in a full team that's playing the way Ten Hag wants to, it's like, oh, I get it. I do get it.
Or even in this case, 80% of a team. That's you know what I mean. Like it's still probably not like it's reaching its final form, if we're honest.
No Anthony, like we started Alonga. No central, like you want Fred and McTominay or one of them to be on the bench, and you want the other to be gone. like we need a whole midfield reboot. We still are playing sort of a guy at right back. Sorry, Diogo Dallo. I know you are one Twitch streamer, but like you're not a Premier League right back or a top 6 Premier League right back. So like we don't have a goalie who can play sweeper keeper. De Gea tried his best yesterday and he made some great saves, but like he's still the wrong goalie for the system. We're considering Kevin Trapp.
Huge in this kind of system.
I never knew goalie as first passer how important it was.
Yeah, I think that's pretty massive. And especially like what you said, not only as first passer, which is not De Gea's strong suit, but as guy who can control 40 yards of space, which is also, you know what I mean? Like, so and just on every level, you know what I mean?
Like the defense. Yeah. Verbally, he's not a verbal leader at all. But also like every time De Gea passes short, it's a risky thing. Every time he passes long, it's a turnover, and then they're coming back the other way with the ball. So, like, really, De Gea, he's given us a lot of great years, but he's a problem to solve.
Yeah.
But enough. All right, so that's been 33 consecutive minutes about Manchester United, Jeff. I saw your match, but let's hear it from the Gunner's mouth.
It feels crazily long ago. I mean, that was a Saturday. It wasn't even like the Saturday morning match. It was like Saturday afternoon here. Like it was like 5:30 kickoff, and it feels like 100 years ago. Like so much has transpired in the soccer universe since then. But I have to say, I mean, it pales in comparison to you guys upsetting Liverpool, obviously, because we're playing a team that could very well be relegated this year. I mean, a lot of people would say, I think, Bournemouth might be the worst team on paper in the league this year, or one of them. And it's hard to argue with that. But it just looked dominant. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the kind of performance, like these are the kinds of games that Arsenal are used to throwing away 3 or 4 of a year and then wondering why we're not in the Champions League places. Right. And, you know, like I think you text me like 2 goals into it when we were up 2-0 and it was still like 15 minutes into the match or something like that. And just saying like, you guys are going to win 6-0. And there was a little part of me as I watched it that was like, cause you know, I think we ended up winning 3-0. And, you know, there was a 4th goal that got called back for VAR and, you know, like Gabriel Jesus is like armpit was offside or whatever it is. But yeah, and like that VAR. Sorry to digress, but that VAR. It looked like it was taken with like security cam footage from a 7-Eleven. It's like the exact same grainy footage that they show robberies with. Sorry.
Funny.
I'm broadcasting live from my washing machine closet right now because that's where the router is in this apartment for some reason.
That's
and
fine.
So if you can hear the like weird waters noises, sorry about that.
That the sound you're hearing is Jeff jiggling back and forth with how happy he is that Arsenal won.
Yeah, that's just bottles and bottles of tequila that I've been drinking to celebrate the new chant of da 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 da.
If you're oh, by the way, I think that should have been its own topic. I texted you, what the fuck is up with this fucking song, Jeff? Because the Arsenal fans. Wait, who is it for again? What player?
So it's for William Saliba, the
Saliba.
Yeah, the French center back who had an incredible goal. The third goal, he just gets like sort of one of those I don't know what to do with the ball kind of passes from Xhaka where like they're in the box but you don't know what to do with it. And then he just decides like, oh, would it be a good thing if I just curled it into the top corner from here, like first touch?
Sure.
It was an incredible goal.
Goal aside, hearing that chant for 7 straight minutes nonstop was like watching, like if you're watching streaming television with ads and you get like some Hulu ad and then you get that same Hulu ad 4 times.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't even watch the show anymore. I just want this ad to die. I don't want the people who made it to die, and I want the media buyer to die. So like as a neutral watching an Arsenal match, I was like, your fans aren't making it easy to be a like a third party. Like I'd like to say as your friend when it's not in direct conflict with what I want or against my team. I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm pro Arsenal, but I'm not anti Arsenal. I've softened my stance on Arsenal because of you and a few other Arsenal friends.
Yeah. That's very nice of you.
Oh yeah, I'm a great guy. But like I that was just not user friendly. that like
No,
someone as a fan leader needs to be like, let's do it twice, guys. That's it.
It's one of those weird ones where like if you're online a lot with soccer stuff, you always see people suggesting chants. And for me, like I'll routinely see them and think, oh, that's like pretty genius, actually. They should do that one. And they never do, But this one I saw like I think it was a Reddit thing. Like somebody put it on there and was like, we should do this. And then it's just so like, it just works so well like usually the problem with the stadium chants that people suggest online is they're like too ornate to be sung by 30,000 drunk people. Whereas like this one is just perfectly ready to be sung by 30,000 drunk people.
Country road, take me home
to
a place I belong. West Virginia. Not related to soccer. Take me home, country road.
But yeah, I mean, it definitely the good times have not stopped so far at Arsenal. And
what did I predict last week about Arsenal season? I feel like it was a good prediction.
Did you say like second or third?
I said I don't think you're gonna lose until October. But then October is going to be tough, and it depends how you handle the tough matches. Like if you ride that high confidence and beat Spurs, beat Liverpool, like you're in first now, man. But warning to the wise, or is it warning from the wise? Word to the wise.
Word to the wise, I believe. Yeah.
Word to the wise. United was leading the league beginning of last calendar year. That's how quickly. That's how quickly these things didn't blow up in your face. But
for sure,
I'm happy that you're getting to like. I don't know, be involved in what is starting as a legitimate season. Like you're having a season where you're like, this is a good season so far.
I mean, that'd be an interesting road for this season to take for us is if we were just really good at being flat track bullies. Like if we just beat all the teams we're supposed to beat, then that makes us probably a Champions League team. And if we can do that and beat some of the teams where it's a toss-up or even where we're not the favorite, which is something you need to do, then suddenly we're looking pretty damn good, and I don't know. So I would be very content to see that as like the development state of the club this year. But who knows if that's going to happen. Like you said, like once we hit that, there's a weird month in there where we're playing we play United in September, But then I think we play like Chelsea, City, and Spurs all in October. If I want to say that's right, and that could be.
We might be at the City match, right? Or are we going? We're going.
We are going. We have tickets. Well, we have tickets, and
I haven't gotten my passport yet, but we have tickets.
We have tickets, and let's hope that the names on the tickets are believable enough that they let us in.
My guy just says white.
That would be a huge step up from where I was last time, where my name almost definitely said "doesn't look like this."
You could pass in a number of societies, Jeff. I think I'm like Jewish, British, or American.
I am from somewhere cold. That's there's no tropical blood in this skin color.
That means you're home, friend.
True.
Hello.
Oh, hi, that's my mother-in-law. Sorry.
My mother-in-law.
Okay.
You want me to be quiet?
I didn't know you here.
Okay.
Cool, the rhyme and sing
Okay. I'll get the dryer after this.
This is basically the OANN network of soccer podcasts where it's like filmed in someone's basement. Tucker Carlson shows up in an Uber X.
That was very Wayne's World. This apartment also the only place I already said I'm in the washing machine closet. The washing machine closet happens to be right next to everyone's bedroom. It couldn't be in a worse place. But that's what we do for the ones of people that watch and listen.
The best has been when your kids come out and they look bashful. They know exactly what's going on, but they still are like scared of it. Like, is this device gonna capture my soul?
Yeah. Yeah. Like if I just linger here longer, will that be better?
Maybe if I just stare, like maybe it can't see me if I don't move.
Speaking of amazing chance,
Speaking of can't move,
that people suggested online and never happened in real life, one of the ones that I always wanted to hear 60,000 fans at the Emirates singing is for Aubameyang, who is the next topic. And I wanted him to be like, mana mana, or like, ba, ba, na, na, na.
That wasn't a
Aubameyang.
thing?
Ba, ba, na, na. Maybe it was. If it is, maybe it's just the one that you can't hear on TV. But
I don't have proof that it was, Jeff. I'm shocked that seems like, to your point, that seems like a slam dunk that like one fan of 10 million will come up with the idea. And
yeah, and I definitely have seen people suggest it. The other one that I really liked was for Ozil, calling it like the Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Like because, or the other one for
his
Ozil
contract says he does.
Yeah. Or the other one that I really liked for him was like the Brazil song. You ever seen that Terry what's his face from Monty Python?
Gilliam.
Yeah. He had
Terry
that movie
McBride.
He had that movie Brazil that has like nothing to do with the country of Brazil, but it just has that weird song that's like Brazil. Na 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 na. That would have been a great Ozil chant.
I don't think
anyone did it.
I have a friend who made a weird like fictional travel tourism video for Brazil. Was her and Reggie Watts going around to like weird architecture and saying, "This is
like
Brazil."
The real Reggie Watts?
Yeah, the real Reggie Watts.
Wow, that's cool.
I'll send it to you later. But Aubameyang, give me the dirt.
It looks like, I mean, I don't know if the ink is dry, but the last I checked, it looks like he is very imminently going to Chelsea. I think he will be one of the few Chelsea players of all time to take the field at Stamford Bridge with an Arsenal tattoo.
Wait, he has an Arsenal tattoo?
Kind of. He has a tattoo of him and his kids holding hands, and he's wearing an Arsenal jersey and walking onto the pitch, and it's got like the 14 and everything. So that's an interesting look for Chelsea. I also it's weird because for a while I'd say he was probably my favorite player in the team, but I also have to kind of admit, I don't think this is a great move for Chelsea. You just bought this guy who's 33, kind of a head case. I will say this. Barcelona, golf clap. They
turned nothing into something.
Yeah, I mean, they said, all right, we will take a free Aubameyang for 6 months. He's going to score a ton of goals here. Then we're going to buy Lewandowski and flip him to Chelsea for 20 million. That's the kind of stuff that doesn't work in real life, but works in FIFA. That's an amazing piece of business they did there. I wish that we were as good at selling players as they are.
But it's funny. I feel like Aubameyang to Barca was a lottery ticket that worked. It could have just as easily been someone that had his contract canceled, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. But even that, it was like, I don't know. I think the original thing was like a loan, and then they had an option. I don't know what it was, but like they were very much like the worst case scenario was not that bad for them on this.
What are they getting? Sorry, what are they getting for him though?
What like what's the fee?
Yeah, like monetarily.
I've seen estimates between 16 and 22 million. I think the 22 million one is sort of like the tabloidy headline where it's 16 plus like 5 or 6 of incentives, which is honestly like that's pretty good for a 33-year-old washed up guy. But it's weird. I don't know how to place it. Like, I mean, something very similar happened recently where people are like, oh, look, an Arsenal captain goes to Barcelona and then comes back to London and goes to Chelsea. And it, referring to Cesc Fabregas, obviously, but like, it doesn't feel like that felt like more of a betrayal. And Cesc was like, still at the time, it seemed like he had a lot of gas in the tank. Like he was like 27 or something like that. Like with Aubameyang, it feels like, is this going to be one of those weird, like Joe Montana in a Kansas City Chiefs uniform where you like almost forget that it happened kind of thing?
Like in a regrettable way
No, it's like, is this just going to be this chapter that we don't even like remember of his career? Like, I feel a little less betrayed, but maybe I'm just trying to put that narrative out there to save the jersey that I have that I really like the pattern on, the design of that says Aubameyang's name on the back.
I mean, you can do that. Like you can still have the time that you had together, Jeff, and it's like you can't control them when they go elsewhere.
But you don't. So wait, are you recommending that I wear the Aubameyang jersey?
You can keep it. Like you can keep the jersey. You
Yeah.
can keep what the jersey represents was that for a number of years he was like a great forward for your team. It's like the way that I feel about like. Dude, I feel that way about Cavani for way less.
That's a good example. But like, would you still feel about it if if Cavani was like somehow coming to like, I guess Liverpool is not a perfect example. Like if Cavani was coming to like Leeds.
What if he did that? What if he did that to be rotation?
Yeah.
Or
that's like probably where he's going to end up at Everton. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know who they're going to put in front of him because all their options up there kind of suck. But
are you saying Everton?
Or sorry, I meant to say Chelsea, but yeah,
you really think about him.
But yeah, I don't know. It's a weird one. I'm kind of bummed out about it. It looked like it wasn't going to happen for a minute, and then suddenly today, it like really seemed to coalesce. Where now I'd be very surprised if it didn't all the way go through.
Right.
So
and the window's winding down. Like our next episode is going to be like transfer window deadline episode, probably.
I was going to say, like, I feel like we've already seen a little bit of, like, between Aubameyang and Casemiro, like, that would have been, like, a crazy deadline day right there. And the stupid part of the transfer window is just starting. So, that's
a lot of those teams that are trying to offload those players don't want to let it go to deadline day because then there's a chance that they're paying this disgruntled player to stay. So they're
a good
like,
point.
Get rid of... Well, apparently Casemiro had decided he wanted a new challenge like earlier in the summer, and United is more of a recent interest of his, but he seems to be like an old school, I like the traditional big teams kind of guy versus like, I'll go to Newcastle. Like Bruno Guimaraes clearly doesn't care about... Actually, that's unfair. Newcastle were a big team.
I mean, but that's a weird, like, I'm glad you brought that up because that seemed to be like this weird narrative in Casemiro's press conference. It looked like a Real Madrid press conference if I'm sort of reading but like, it looked like he was like there talking to the Spanish press. But
well, he did in the morning. He said goodbye to Madrid. That was like a whole event that happened before he flew to the Liverpool match.
Right. But then he also, like, in that, he seemed to be very defensive about, like, people say I'm just doing this for the money, but like you got to admit that like Manchester United is a big club, and like I think he said something along like maybe they're just as big as Real Madrid. Like it's Manchester United, they're kind of a big deal. But he seemed to have a chip on his shoulder a little bit that people were going to say, oh, like you're just cashing a check. And on some level, like, I don't know, do you buy that line of thought that he's not just cashing a check? Like, do you really think that he is like there because he believes in the Ten Hag project, or like because he wants like a different thing to add to his resume as a footballer or something? Like he wants.
Well, first of all, he's really close buddies with Varane. They're like roughly the same age, and they've come up in the team and they've won a lot together. So there's that. I wouldn't say Ronaldo is an influence because who's friends with Ronaldo? He's just like
He said that he was. He said I haven't talked to him, but I'm like pumped to reunite. But I don't know what else
it's
you can
Jeff. If
say.
I was coming to work at your company and I was like, I haven't talked to Jeff about the fact that I'm coming to work at his company, but I'm sure like
Yeah,
your
that says a
friend.
lot. That says a lot.
I think it's just it was like a respectful, yes, we know each other kind of
Yeah.
comment. But once like we do agree with me, Casemiro at the moment top 5 D mids on the planet, but at different points has maybe been number 1. Like think of Real Madrid's like multiple Champions League haul in like a few years.
Yeah.
Like once you get to be that level of player, even as you get older, you're getting paid well. Like at any of the teams they end up at, there can only be so many teams that those players can even go to because they're getting accustomed to X wages. They can't suddenly go to, I'm going to go to Fulham now. Well, Fulham can't pay you that. They have a wage structure. So
Right.
really,
Well,
it's like Casemiro can't go to Barca, could go to PSG, probably doesn't want to. PSG maybe don't need him.
am I supposed to agree to all of this? This is a lot of things that you're telling me I need to agree or not agree with.
I mean, you know the dynamic of our podcast. I talk a lot and wear you down, and eventually I just
Fine, Schuyler. No, no. I think the thing about defensive midfielders in particular is I feel like midfielders are it's a cocktail, and I feel like
What'd you call me?
the classic cocktail of Casemiro and Modric and oh gosh, who's the other one there? Cruz, right? Like that sort of thing. I don't like. Obviously, he fit really well into that, but I think it's risky to move as a midfielder like him, who has a sort of very incredible but not unlimited skill set. Like I could imagine a lot of midfields that he doesn't fit into. Like Pogba to me is another prime example where like in a certain midfield,
Casemiro, Pogba would be a good middle two. Because
like maybe,
Casemiro
yeah,
does all
because
the-
you have a responsible one and like a journeying guy. Like it would kind of work. Like, yeah, I don't know, maybe.
But also Casemiro, let's not talk about him like he can't pass. He can pass. He's just not Modric or Cruz, so he's not playing the long balls in that team they are.
Yeah.
But compared to Scott fucking McTominay, who just played his first long pass of the last 2 years.
Yeah. I wouldn't doubt his passing ability at all. I don't doubt his ability to defend in and around his box. But I do wonder like how much ground can he cover in a really aggressive pressing team, because that's not what he's been doing before. But I mean, he could very well prove me wrong. Like there are smarter people than me that think that he's going to be great there. And I have nothing but respect for him as a player. Like he's had this amazing, body of work, but
don't judge him for next weekend, by the way. It will be his first match with only 3 days of training in Ten Hag's system. But I think we should be more defensively stable. I see no reason that would change in the Premier League because he's been doing it in the Champions League on the highest stage,
Yeah.
All right. So what is this? We got 2 more. I'm trying to let.
Oh man, you're already answering the question I was about to ask you, because I was going to ask you, do you even know what this ticker, which says "Fair Play to the Finance Department," do you even know what I'm referring to here?
Ooh.
Okay, well, that's interesting because that was going to be has this made it out of the sort of Arsenal sphere yet? So I believe it was 2 days ago. If you don't follow the Swiss Ramble on Twitter, I do. It's a very, very nerdy like accounting Twitter that goes super deep into club finances. And basically the point that they made is like, all clubs have been doing terribly during COVID. Arsenal in particular have been doing terribly because of COVID, and then also not making the Champions League, not even making Europe at all. We didn't play in any sort of European competition last year, and that has taken a big toll on our finances. And we've started to shell out money for players while we've also had a bunch of dead weight on our books, like a la Pepe, a la Aubameyang, these players that were on giant bulging contracts. And basically, it's different. Well, no, it's the long story short is that there may be financial fair play issues for Arsenal on the horizon. Like it's very difficult. He's very good at, or she, I don't know who Swiss Ramble is. They are very good at doing the calculations and sort of getting like deep into the amortization and blah, 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 blah. But they have to do it all with estimates, and, transfers are not public data. So you have to kind of read the tea leaves, and the Guardian might quote a different number than the Telegraph or on a particular player's transfer, and who knows like which incentives they're hitting and blah blah blah. But basically, there's very little room for error.
When you find people fuck up some numbers are in pounds, some numbers are in euros, some are in dollars, and they remember the number and then they give it the wrong currency, and then that starts to make its way around.
Or even I feel like some of them almost on purpose, or at least like without trying too hard to not do it, will just take the higher number and then give it the lower currency sign. So then it's like if it was 40 million pounds and then it's 50 million euros, well, then next week it's 50 million pounds because that sounds even worse. And then it gets rounded up to 60 million euro, and again, the cycle continues. But the long story short, so at first I was thinking, well, that's interesting. And like, they've really done the legwork to, the Swiss Ramble has done the legwork to see like that we're going to be close. I also think that like the future looks bright for us financially. Hopefully we'll have some winnings from the Europa League if we can go deep in that competition, which is almost like making Champions League if you go far enough and blah, blah, blah. But
well, if you win it, it's more lucrative than like a group stage Champions League exit.
Right. And even like, if like semifinal to me is like a very reasonable goal. We haven't won it. If you lose it to Chelsea and or Man United or teams like that, then you just kick yourself. But then,
Sevilla, I think.
Yeah.
Sevilla or Villarreal, one of the two. We lost it to a year and a half ago.
But at first I was not that concerned about it. It's like, okay, one random Twitter account. Like, I'm sure we are playing it kind of close to the line. Like every club is right now. They're all kind of in the hole.
They've all had COVID losses.
Right.
And that rolls over into the next season because it's not like the next season, things are better again. It's like, no, now we have more debt.
And then the next day, slightly more alarming. So UEFA had, I think, officially added us to the financial fair play watch list, which I don't know enough about to know how serious that is. But I did see one commenter say that would be the most Arsenal thing ever, to be like the good boys of football finance for decades, while everyone else was being like such jerks financially and spending money like it, grew on trees. And then for us to somehow be the ones that like just got slapped down by financial fair play, that would be so Arsenal. And I kind of can't agree more.
Sell a player? Like, what's going to happen?
Well, I mean, you look at the teams that are actually in like the actual trouble of it, like Barcelona right now, or, I know this because we have this ongoing transfer saga with Hector Bellerin, but Real Betis are
it rhymes with lettuce in my head. I'm so sorry.
Betis and Martinez are going all the way. No,
I'm walking here.
That's how you talk. Even those guys, it's like, it looks like you have problems registering certain players or something like that. So, I mean, it still looks like it's not the end of the world. And then even the people who absolutely flouted financial fair play, like Barcelona and Chelsea and Man City, who've all been penalized, it's like you basically have to sit out for one transfer window, which it's not great.
What, meaning like you can't buy anybody, or meaning you can't do anything?
That's a good question. I think that you are allowed outgoings, but then that can be a blessing or a curse, because like if you're getting rid of dead wood, that helps you financially, great. But if your team is in financial fair play trouble and not able to strengthen, and then suddenly you have like your best players requesting out, then maybe that's not great. But
well, I mean, as a United fan, it's like I have to start, as a straight white male, I just wanted to. But like as a United fan, it's like it's so weird living in a situation where financially things are fucked and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Like you're kind of powerless. Like they have to figure it out, and there's like nothing you can do about it. There's nothing any of the players can do about it unless they want to do the Barcelona and just give away money. Like,
right.
How nuts is that? How many Barcelona players were just like, yeah, we'll take a 50% pay cut. Like if my work asked me to do that, I'd be like, I'll do 50% less work.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a wild thing that happens to them. I mean, I don't know. I think it would be the hardest kind of defeat as a club for me to swallow. Like even like in another not so distant universe, Arsenal is Everton right now, where we took some swings. We kind of needed to rebuild. None of it was working. And like, we could be the ones that are in the relegation battles. I mean, Everton were inches away yet last year from being in the championship. And like, that is not an impossibility. And like, I think on some level, as much as it would devastate me, I wouldn't stop being an Arsenal fan. It wouldn't dent my love of the club at all. It would make it way harder to find the games on television, but like, I would just roll with those punches. And in a weird way, it would be home for me because all the teams that I was a fan of as a kid were like terrible. So I sort of learned to enjoy like what it's like to like, I don't know. It's like crying in your beers. Yeah. Like, it's like the suffering of like being in like a core group where like, they don't know what we've been through. Like, we've been through it all, baby. Like, and it's like a stupid thing to say aloud, but it's like, there's some sort of like belonging that you get out of that. And it works on a different level that you probably don't understand until recently as a Manchester United fan.
90s fan and early 2000s United fan.
Yeah. So like, yeah, welcome to the shit. But yeah, like, so that part on some weird level, it wouldn't faze me as much as like if the club went into like bankruptcy, or there was like some risk that Arsenal wouldn't be a club, or like maybe we weren't a club for like a couple years, and then suddenly, we like came back as this like reconstituted thing with a slightly different logo. It's like that would, and it's all because of like some weird financial bookkeeping issue that I barely understand. Yeah, like that. I think that would be like much more like troubling on like an existential level for me following the club. Whereas like if we just were bad at football for a while, like, well, I've seen that before. I've seen versions of that. Maybe not relegation bad, but.
Well, I hope you don't get relegated. As much as other United fans watching are probably like, you what, mate? Stop sucking his prick. And like, sorry. But so I hope it doesn't happen to you. But specifically, I get you that it's like you'd rather it be because we were bad at football and got relegated than we pulled the team and it died off life support.
Yeah, that would be worse to me if somehow we had to like sell the Emirates to West Ham or something.
That'd be a betrayal from ownership, which you and I can hold hands and hug about all day. I wanted to ask you about your London update, but we might have to save it for next time because I'm getting lots of work messages. So
let's save it. This is a good podcast.
Really good, a quick hour, right?
Yeah, went by very quickly.
Love you, buddy.
It's amazing how chatty we are when both of our teams are winning.
It's fun. I could have talked to you for another hour, baby. Oh. All right, bye.
All right, see you.
Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. A soccer podcast that probably won't last. Meet the Suckers. Meet the Suckers. Schuyler and Jeff don't know how to rhyme. Meet the Suckers and chat.